Welcome to the First Unitarian Fellowship of Nanaimo. Excuse me. My name is Catherine Hazel, and I am your service leader for this morning. If this is your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. We invite you to visit our website for more detailed information about who we are, the services we offer, and how you can connect with us. Whatever your ethnicity, theological belief, gender, sexual orientation, age, and everything that makes you who you are, please know that you are warmly welcome in our community. We acknowledge today that we meet on the unceded traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. As Unitarians, we commit to the work of reconciliation required to address the harm done to Indigenous cultures and worldviews by non-Indigenous people. And now we have some announcements. Thank you to Ilsa Halling for the photo of the beautiful spring snowdrops we see this morning. Earlier this week, you should have received a copy of a strategic plan for the fellowship. There will be a question and answer session about the plan today at 1 p.m. See the weekly update or the email that accompanied the plan for a link to the meeting. Last Saturday, members of the Green Faith Circle planted the trees that had been donated as part of the Sacred People, Sacred Earth event in March. Thanks to all the Fufaners who came and helped out. More than 80 trees were planted in less than an hour. Let us now enter into sacred time. Leah Hokanson, our musical director, will lead us into worship through music.
Good morning, everybody. This morning's prelude was written by Bart Howard in 1954 and just happens to be one of my mother's, was one of her favorite songs. And you will likely recognize it, but if you don't, it's called Fly Me to the Moon.
Good morning, everyone. So good to see you this morning. This morning, we're going to weave the ways of the moon with Ramadan and Mother's Day and the early days of the Prophet Muhammad. More than usual, I feel like this Mother's Day is a bit of a mixed blessing. I'm aware of how difficult this year has been on mothers. Some working from home, surrounded by children who are unable to see their friends and get a break. Grandparents unable to relieve the pressures for their children and aching to hold their grandchildren. The worry of getting sick and not being able to care for the family. The worry of paying the bills when work is scarce. Children taking care of older mothers, unable to see them because of the restrictions. This year, the challenges have been many. Taking care of the people that we love, who we are responsible for, is the work of many. Some we call mothers. Let us begin with a blessing. Please join me in this blessing called For All the Mothers by Linda Susan Ulrich. For all the mothers. For all the mothers and mother figures, the grandmothers and aunts, and extended family, members who mother. The soon-to-be mothers, the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, the it's complicated mothers, the birth mothers, foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers, the used to be dad mothers, and the more than one mothers, the single mothers, separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers, the grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the great mother, you are held and beloved.
We light our chalice for all the people and communities that mother, who hold and are held, who love and are loved.
We are our grandmother's prayers. Please join in singing this morning. We are, and thank you to Ruth for putting our words up on the screen. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Looking out the open window in the middle of the night, On a clear night, the window frames the moon perfectly, like a picture frame. The rectangle edges of the window highlight the roundness of the moon, whether a crescent shape or full, whether white or golden red, the moon captivates me. I am captivated, held by its beauty, by its mysterious, powerful presence. And if the moon is full and its white light fills our house, both rare and beautiful, I'd like to open the curtains and watch the moon shadows move across the wall. I like to sleep bathed in the gentle, cool light of the moon. I think of these nights as beautiful and rare. The moon, for me, is mysterious. Maybe because of its many changes of shape and size. Maybe because its color changes. One night it's a small pale crescent, and another night bright, clear, round, and full. Sometimes it seems incredibly far away and small. Another time, so close you think it's resting on the earth. You never know what you'll find when you look up into the nighttime sky. Of course, there are known reasons for these changes, but it's still awesome. And when the moon appears enormous, hanging low on the horizon, or when the harvest moon, all amber colored, almost vermilion, sits in the branches of a tree. You know, it's news to exclaim to your neighbors, "Did you see the moon tonight? Oh, you must go and see it. It's amazing." And whether you are in the forest or the prairie, the moon follows you. And there is nothing more magical than the moon on water. Its light glimmering like 1,000 dancing jewels from the horizon in a line that leads straight to where you are. The moon is personal. Whether the goddess's face or the man in the moon belongs to the earth. Therefore, she belongs to us. Every child can see the eye of the moon looking at them. Oh yes, it's fanciful, but every child in the whole world, whatever their religion, rich or poor, can look up into the nighttime sky and see the face of the moon, as you and I did, and likely still do. Gentle, beautiful, mysterious and personal, transforming. The moon is ours. I invite you now to settle in for our meditation of music and image. So take a deep breath, exhale, and enjoy. Thank you, Leah. Like the moon that waxes and wanes, so do I. When I sat down to write this reflection, it was on top of a whirlwind of responsibilities and deadlines, such as May. Canadian ministers are meeting for 4 days starting Monday, and I am on the executive planning team. And then one of our team had a death in their family, so there were extra responsibilities to be picked up. And yesterday was the Canadian Unitarian Council's AGM. And as the minister observer to the board representing Canadian ministers, I had a number of parts to play. And next weekend is the CUC's biannual conference. So you see, lots of waxing and waning one way or the other, and blazing full on this week. And of course, it's Mother's Day, another day of mixed blessings. Now, don't get me wrong. I have loved and been grateful for being a mother. But as a minister, I'm very aware that we all experience mothering and motherhood differently. It's a blessing and it's a challenge. Then there are mothers. And again, I know many people who have been loved well by their mothers and others who are not. I know people who have been nurtured by many mothers and others who have learned how to mother themselves. Waxing and waning, full and empty, mothering in all its brightness and its deep and many shadows. When we are born, we usually don't know the path ahead of us. Some of it may be predictable based on where in the world we are born and to who we are a child of and their circumstances. When Muhammad was born, his mother didn't know that he would grow into the founder of a world religion, the prophet of Islam. Muhammad came into the world fatherless, his father dying just 3 months before his birth. His mother, Amna, was a member of the Banu Zuhara clan, who claimed descent from Abraham through his son Ishmael. Names that will be familiar to you from the Hebrew scriptures. His maternal lineage rooted in the ancient clans of the Hebrew leaders. In 570 AD, at the time Muhammad was born, there was a great drought and the people were hungry and desperate. Alina, a poor Bedouin woman from the desert, arrived in Makkah seeking work as a wet nurse. As was customary in well-off families, Muhammad's mother, Amina, chose Helena to suckle her son. Helena kept Muhammad with her and her family in the desert for many years. He was raised with her own children, known as suckling siblings. This is a new term for me, suckling siblings. Those children who share the same breasts as infants. I wonder if this is not a wise custom, not for regular use maybe, but in times of crisis, when a mother becomes ill and cannot feed her child. What a gift it would be to know that your child is being cared for and fed and loved by another woman. Suckling siblings also makes me think of the other children that I grew up with, the neighborhood houses I came and went through, the other families I ate meals with. I also think of my daughters growing up in a co-op, surrounded by waves of children, ebbing and flowing through many homes. Mostly, though, I think of my dearest friend and her 2 children who grew up with mine. They did almost everything together. They'd share every holiday together, all 4 children sharing the same bed or a tent, cuddled up like puppies, listening to either Sheila or I read a story. I have a picture of the four of them intently focused on eating huge ice cream cones, their faces covered with chocolate or pistachio. I have so many other pictures in my memory. One of them from when they were goofy, cool teenagers making gingerbread houses together at Christmas time. They were, in a way, suckling siblings, though technically neither mother physically suckled them, but they did have two mothers. I wonder if you grew up with a family other than your nuclear family. Not unusual in Indigenous cultures, or Asian, Black, or Latino families, where children are raised, fed, scolded, and praised by many mothers and aunties and grandmothers. Mohammed's wet nurse, Helena, was really his second mother. It was her arms that held him when he was young, her breasts that fed him, her voice he heard singing songs. Alina saw him roll over the first time and crawl, and probably celebrated his first steps. She saw his personality emerge and saw him begin to test his boundaries. I think of all the mothers we might have had, the other mothers we did have, the aunties and the neighbors, the friends who stepped in to help when help was needed, the women who mothered with or without titles, who washed and dressed and guided and mentored us through our lives, and who returned us back to our other mothers. Mohammed returned to his birth mother around the age of 2 after he was weaned. I think about the world today. I think about the world being quite different today. We might consider it today a great trauma to leave the one who nurtured us, to be returned to the one we hardly knew. But for Mohammed and the culture he lived in, it was accepted to move between mothers. Did he suffer? Apparently not. Or maybe the suffering slipped into his unconsciousness, like the moon slipping behind a cloud, and he accessed the experience later in his life, perhaps to understand a deeper compassion. Well, somewhere between the ages of 5 and 6 years old, Mohammed traveled with his birth mother to visit her relatives in Yathrib, an oasis town a few hundred miles north of Mecca, and to visit his father's grave there. Unfortunately, on the return journey, his mother Amna fell ill and died. Another shock in the life of this young child. And now with no mother and too old to return to Helena's family, Mohammed went to live with his uncle, leaving behind the world of mothers. Losing mothers, leaving mothers, mothers leaving us. Not what we anticipated, but it happens. There are wars and famines and natural disasters. There are tragedies. There is life. Behind the heart's ache, if we are lucky, if we are wise, lies love. Not always soft and warm love. Sometimes it's a broken love, an almost love. Sometimes it's the clue we need to learn how to love ourselves. Maybe all the love we have received in our lives, from birth mothers to mentoring mothers to neighborhood mothers, is all to show us how to mother ourselves, how to nurture ourselves, how to show compassion and understanding to ourselves, patience and forgiveness to ourselves. And maybe when we have mastered mothering ourselves, we are able to pass it along to someone else. It is said that Mohammed visited Helena many times through his life and shed tears on learning that she had died. Said the man who had two mothers, "Paradise lies at the feet of your mother." We all deserve to be loved. We are loved, sometimes incrementally, and sometimes we are loved with a bursting fullness. We all deserve love. To be loved simply because we exist. And in that love, we are loved. Such is paradise. I thank you for listening, and thank you for your presence today.
Thank you, Debra. Our next song was written by Islam Youssef, formerly Cat Stevens, Moon Shadow. And thank you again to Ruth for putting our words up on the screen. I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my hands, lose my plow, lose my land, oh, if I ever lose my hands, oh, if I won't have to work no more. And if I ever lose my eyes, if my colors all run dry, yes, if I ever lose my eyes, oh, if I won't have to cry no more. Yes, I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my legs, I won't moan and I won't beg. Yes, if I ever lose my legs, oh, if I won't have to walk no more. And if I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south, yes, if I ever lose my mouth, oh, if I won't have to talk. Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful light. Did it take long to find me? And are you gonna stay the night? I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow.
Oh, that was one of my favorite songs growing up. Thank you. So this is a bit of a special announcement. Yesterday, something momentous happened at the Canadian Council's annual general meeting. You may have already seen some emails and tweets about it. Yesterday was an example that we really do have a living tradition, meaning that we learn and grow and respond to change in our understanding and in our priorities, and now in our principles. Yesterday, the congregational delegates, the people representing the members of this fellowship in every congregation in Canada, paused in the business meeting shortly after the Dismantling Racism Study Group had finished their report on the work that they had been doing this past 2 years. Work that had included a national survey to understand the extent of racism within our congregations. The survey revealed, among other things, that racism was understood and experienced significantly differently, whether you were white or a member of color. Oop, just lost my place. A delegate from Victoria First Congregation asked to speak and asked how it would be possible to vote on the 8th principle right now. The parliamentarian consulted Robert's rules, and the path was described and then was acted on. The member delegates agreed to suspend the agenda. Then the new motion was brought forward. It was seconded, and delegates spoke both for and against this motion. Those who spoke against it felt that more time was needed to consult their congregations. Those who spoke for it said, "We have been reading and discussing and learning about the need to be fully equitable and to do the work of dismantling racism in ourselves and in our congregations for years. And we are ready to take the next step." And the Reverend Ann Barker reminded the delegates that they had the power to make this change. The vote was taken and it passed. Today, Canadian Unitarians have a new principle. The first change in our principles since 1984, when the 7th principle was added. The 8th principle reads thus: "We, the member congregations of the Canadian Unitarian Council, covenant to affirm and promote individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions." Yesterday and today, my heart is full. I am proud of those who voted both for and against this motion. The against because they wanted to include a greater number of people in the decision, going back to the congregations and having a fulsome discussion about it. And for the for, because it was the time to move with prophetic determination. In the days ahead, not everyone will like this change. The process by which it came about will be discussed and likely challenged. This is part of the process of democracy. The voting of the 8th principle was made through a democratic process, yet I can understand that many would like to have had their voices heard more fully. I believe in our democratic principle, and I believe in our principle of inclusion. In the days ahead, we are going to be talking about the 8th principle. This morning, Vida Ning, who is the executive director of the Canadian Unitarian Council, sent this email out in response to emails expressing many different points of view that were going around yesterday and this morning. She says, "Dear all, I've read your responses, both the ones expressing delight and the ones expressing concern about the process. I am in conversation and consultation with others and will be bringing back to you some options for proceeding. Your concerns tell me that you are passionate about process and content, and that you will not be silent when something goes wrong. I am confident that our mutual commitments to equity and justice and to the democratic process will see us through together. Please be patient while we work this through. I think it's entirely possible that our faith may lose some members over this, but we will also retain members that may have left if it had not been passed. And I think we retain members because what we see as a bold and a determined decision. And I hope we might even grow because of this boldness. In the next while, I'll be talking with our delegates here at Thorne about their experience and invite you to speak to them and speak to me as we all deepen in our understanding of this momentous addition to our faith identity.
We welcome your donations and pledges in two different ways. First, we have set up the Unitarian Fellowship bank account to automatically deposit e-transfers sent to info@ufon.ca, making this the most efficient way to receive donations at this time. Second, you can write a check and pop it into the mail. As it will have your name and address on it, it will be recorded as part of your pledge. Our charity for April to June is Nanaimo Samaritan House. Samaritan House provides 4 main services to women in crisis: emergency shelter, supportive housing, transitional housing, and rent subsidies. Its staff are dedicated to creating a safe, warm, welcoming environment and providing emotional support and empathy at an extremely vulnerable time for women that come to their doors. We are grateful for your offering.
Our closing words. Blessed are you, following the light of your moon way, learning and loving, growing and deepening, knowing and unknowing.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now you're all invited to switch to gallery view and imagine we are all standing in a circle holding hands, and we'll sing our closing song, Carry the Flame of Peace and Love Until We Meet Again. Then we shall see a world of light and a world of joy. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Then we shall see a world of light and a world of joy. Carry the flame of peace and love until we